Hello, hello! In this video, I am going to share what was supposed to be the start of the 100 Heads Challenge that a lot of people have done, and I'll explain later why this won't be that. So first of all, what is the 100 Heads Challenge? Well, this was something that was started, I believe, by Ahmed Al-Duri, and the idea is to draw 100 heads in 10 days. So about 10 heads a day. And it's pretty open as far as how you want to do it. If you want to work on certain skills or certain media, even the reference photos that you use can be whatever you choose. I know that Ahmed does have a Pinterest page, I believe, that has a bunch of photos that you can use for reference, but a lot of that is going to depend on what you're trying to get out of the challenge. Some of the things that I wanted to work on would be to work on differing facial expressions, different facial angles, and lighting conditions. Really working with shadow and light in interesting ways. And I also wanted to work on more of a true portraiture kind of thing. And that's a real challenge for me because I don't always follow references completely, and I often change things to suit what I'm, the mood I'm after, or what the drawing is supposed to represent, or whatever. And what I wanted to do was draw things that, this is this particular person, and that is a challenge for me. It's pretty tough to do. I'm always amazed when I try to draw someone that just being off by a tiny bit can make a huge difference as to, whether or not a drawing looks like someone. And it doesn't take much. So that's one reason I wanted to work on that. It's something that I generally have steered clear of, maybe partially just to be more comfortable with my drawings, but also, I like to draw surreal things, and doing lifelike things doesn't always work into what my plans are for the day. So one of the big reasons I'm not doing 100 heads this way really ends up being it will just take too much time. As you can see, and as I'm drawing here, I have to be a lot more deliberate with where I'm placing things, and it just takes a long time to do. I know a lot of people are taught to do maybe like a Loomis head sort of method, which I do use. That is, drawing a circle and elongating it for the jaw and dividing it in halves and quarters and all that. And I find that works really well if I am inventing a face or doing it from imagination. It kind of gives me some guidelines to work with. But I found that when I'm trying to draw somebody very specific, that I end up relying on lines that really don't make sense for that particular face. So what I found works best for me is to do this sort of facial mapping. I will find certain, I guess what I'll call like landmarks on the face, and I will work from there to determine the location of other features. And once those are in place and they look correct, then I can call those new landmarks that I can base new lines off of. And I find that works pretty well for me overall. It may not be the most efficient way, but it is what I found works when I'm trying to draw something very specific. Most of this video will end up being in time lapse, but I did want to leave this in real time so you could at least see the sort of method that I'm using and really how long it takes me to go about doing it. Maybe if I did this more, I could do it a little bit quicker, But again, this is something that I don't generally do. So I probably could use more practice. You can see how I'm trying to draw lines and how like the certain directions that they go that should line up with other facial features, and you can kind of see how I build on that slowly, and I'll go back and make some changes if they don't quite look right. Sometimes you don't know that until you see the whole thing put together. I did that on a couple of these drawings. I got to the end and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't quite look right. And I had to go back and erase some things and maybe move the eye over 1 millimeter or whatever it was, and hopefully get the right appearance. And that's a thing that I discovered as I was doing these. I've discovered it before, but it kind of reminded me. When you draw small, and these are relatively small drawings, being off by 1 millimeter is a huge difference. If these were larger, being off by 1 millimeter, you probably wouldn't even notice. There was one drawing in particular that I was working on in this series here that I could not figure out what was wrong with it. And it really just ended up being, the stuff was just off by a tiny bit, but it was enough that it made it not look like the person it was intending to represent. So that is a reason that this is just a difficult thing to do for me. And a big reason I'm not going to do 100 of these, at least not with this method. Maybe I'll do something a little bit looser and just give myself the permission not to be exact. And after completing all 10 of these drawings, I think that some of them are pretty successful. I think that if you looked at them and you knew who the person was, that you'd be able to put the two together and say, yeah, this is so-and-so. There are some, though, that just, I don't think that would work. These things are not exact enough, or there's not enough detail in the right places to get that across. So, it's a learning experience. I'm still always trying to figure out, how to get better with what I'm doing. And sometimes you have to practice these things that make you a little bit uncomfortable in order to get better. And I know that you might be curious as to who these people are. Maybe you recognize them, maybe you don't. At first I didn't want to say who they were just because I didn't want people to know how badly some of them turned out. But no, I think it's only fair to let you know what I was going after. So this particular drawing, actually all of them are musicians or music people that I like or I find interesting, particularly if they have an interesting look. And I know that's kind of weird, to musicians and being concerned about how they look, but for this project that made sense. This drawing here that I'm doing is someone named Dieter Meyer, and he is half of the duo of a band called Yellow. Now, they were known in the 80s, mostly by most people for their hit song Oh Yeah, which ended up in a number of movies, and they have continued to make great music for many, many years. Anyway, he has an interesting look. He's very identifiable, and it was just one of about 100 people that I selected. I actually have a folder of different pictures of different people that I was intending to draw for 100 of them, but I don't think that's going to happen, at least not right away. The previous drawing was of a musician named Daniel Johnston. He is definitely one of those outsider type musicians, and never, as far as I know, had anything on the radio, or he had just a very cult following. He's probably better known in Austin, Texas, for being the guy who painted the Hi, How Are You mural. So if you've seen that, that is Daniel Johnston. I did make some improvements to my video situation since my last videos, and that's worked out pretty well overall. I did miss some of the filming for whatever reason, including the very end of Dieter Meyer, so you don't get to see him till the very end. And this one I got to in the middle, and there's a lot missing there too. By the way, that is a musician named Stephen Cummings from Australia. He's been putting out music for many decades, and in fact just put out an album this year earlier. And in fact, this was after he had a stroke maybe 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and he has worked hard to be able to make a new album. He did it with a lot of friends, and it is really good. I was amazed. It's different. His voice has changed quite a bit, but the sensibility is still very much Stephen Cummings. And next up is a drawing that does not do very much justice to the person it's representing, David Hidalgo. He is best known for his work with Los Lobos, but he was also in Los Super 7 and Latin Playboys, and he's played with just about, so many great musicians, from Mark Ribot to Tom Waits to Bonnie Raitt to, Ry Cooder, whoever. Just a fantastic guitarist. I did struggle with this one quite a bit, particularly the hair and the hairline towards the back of his head. And this is strictly, from an artistic standpoint, it was difficult to do because his hair is quite thin in that area. And so I needed to show that the hair was there, but also that you could, really see through that hairline to the background. And that was difficult to do at this size. It probably would have worked out better had I done this about, twice as large as this drawing is. And moving on to the next drawing here. This is Jacques Dutronc. Kind of unknown in the United States overall, but he's pretty popular in France and in French-speaking areas. Kind of best known for his work in the 60s, probably with the French pop and the yay sort of stuff. I really like him. I think he's a lot of fun. Great songwriter, and he was married to Françoise Hardy for a while. So, just kind of iconic French guy. Plus, he's got a really great look. He looks like he belongs in a magazine or something. For all of these drawings, I'm using pencil, different ones, using some regular pencils like you saw there, ranging from maybe a 4H up to a 3B, where I need to get really dark. But most of it I was using this mechanical pencil, just a 0.5 millimeter lead. It's really good for working small. You can get some nice details, and for me it's just a real comfortable way of getting a drawing established. And then sometimes I'll use the regular graphite pencils to do more shading and filling in larger areas. This drawing here is of a musician named Eddie Grant. He is probably best known in the United States for his hit Electric Avenue in the 80s. But he actually got his musical start, I believe, with the Equals in the UK. And you've probably heard a song or two by them. I had a lot of fun doing this drawing. And probably of the 10 that I did here, this is probably my most favorite as far as the process was concerned. I mean, he's got some great facial features. They're a little bit unusual, so that was fun. And that head of hair was just fantastic, just fantastic. What an iconic look, and it was fun to do. And a couple that I didn't get all the filming for. This one is Lux Interior of the band The Cramps, and this next one, Lois Maffio. There are certain voices that just sit right with you. Lois's always sits right with me. She can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned, as far as how she sounds when she sings. We got another drawing here that shows a little bit more about the process. Fortunately, I got more footage of this. How I was doing, I guess what I'm calling facial mapping, using facial landmarks to be able to put different things, different lines in the places where they belong. This is sped up quite a bit, but you can kind of see the overall method that I'm using to get there. It is another drawing that would have benefited from being a little bit larger. Some of these are really too small to get the sort of detail and the exact locations of lines that is probably needed to accurately depict a person. And this person is a musician named Stephen Malkmus. He is probably best known for his work with Pavement, and I guess currently he makes music as Stephen Malkmus and the Jicks, and all pretty good stuff. I enjoy it. I liked his look, particularly his nose. He has a great strong nose, and that's kind of why I wish this was a little bit larger. I could have really worked on that and enjoyed it. So it's kind of good that I did this as a trial run. Obviously, I'm not going to be doing 100 heads like this, but I will do something. I've learned some things about what's going to be realistic for me to do, so I will get to the 100 heads challenge. I'm probably just going to do it a little bit differently than I had anticipated. I thought it would be good to do a review of the drawings that I did for this, including one that I didn't show any filming of. That is Debbie Harry, better known as Blondie. Doesn't really look a lot like her, but to be fair, the photograph I used on that is not typical of her look. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with the drawings here. I think that they more or less represent the people that I was attempting to represent, and if not, I think they're still kind of interesting drawings and something to work on in the future, trying to do these very representative portraits. Thanks so much for tuning in and checking these out, and hopefully you enjoyed it. I will have things that are similar to this in the future. Until then, thank you so much for coming, and subscribe if you want to see more.